Hello and welcome to Up the Turnpike, your source for New York Islanders content, both here on YouTube and over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Up the Turnpike for podcasts twice a week, a dedicated Discord server, a Friday six pack, and so much more specifically during the season. So sign up today. In today's video, we're looking at the top 5 prospects in the Islanders prospect pool as of right now. Now, typically when I do a video like this, I go full on nerd and be like, based off of the NHLE, here are the top 5 prospects in the Islanders prospect pool. I'm not going to do that specifically. We're going to look at what the numbers say, but then we're going to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you my top 5 based off of what I think are the 5 best players in the Islanders prospect pool. And the ranking isn't based off of who I think has the highest ceiling, but who I think has a combination of the highest ceiling, the readiness for the NHL, all of that together. But first off, the top 5 based off the numbers. I want to set the scene for what the numbers say our top 5 are, so we can see where the numbers are kind of like maybe a little skewy here. And we get that the analytics and eye test kind of debate going at the same time. So the analytics say that top prospect in our prospect pool, Alex Jeffries, 22.429 NHLE. Really good numbers at the NCAA level. Really good. Let me bring them up if I can here. Alex Jeffries, right? 23 points in 22 games last year for Merrimack. 41 points in 38 games the year prior. And then topped it off with 7 points in 12 games at the AHL level this season. Not a big sample size, obviously, but that's a pretty good scoring rate. 7 points in 12 games as you just jump right into the pros. I like it. I like it a lot. And there's a lot to like out of this kid, which I'll spew a little bit later. Spoiler. Then from there, Matthew Maggio, 21.559. Maggio had an outstanding season at the career, really, at the OHL level. Topped it off with over 100 points in his final year. Led the Windsor Spitfires. Just decimated the OHL. Decimated. It was insane. Now, the jump from the OHL to the AHL kind of wasn't as meteoric as he had last year at the OHL level, but that's fine, right? It's going to be a little bit slower. It's a big step to go from OHL to AHL. And we have to remember this is a 5th round pick after all, right? The expectation should be low. It's going to take him a little bit of time. It shouldn't be, you destroyed the OHL, NHL, here we go. That's not how it works typically. Not for what was an overage season for Matthew Maggio. But he still had a decent enough year at the AHL level where the numbers or the NHLE model is saying he's still our second best prospect. From there, Justin Gill, who also had some big numbers at the QMJHL level, though, last year with 98 points in 65 games, which sounds like a lot, because it is. But the year prior to that, he had 93 points. Let me bring it up real quick here. Justin Gill had 93 points in 68 games. Basically the same thing as the year after. Sure, different team, but he was expected, and he was, a leader for the Dracul. A top line player, power play, all of that. And he didn't really leap off the score sheet, which is fine in a way. Apparently he still has some pretty good translatables. I'm not entirely sure about that based off of what I've seen. His skating is okay. He's obviously a really physical player, which served him well in the QMJHL. It's just, I wonder how quick that's going to translate to the pros. We'll see this year. But when I look at the numbers test, Justin Gill to me doesn't pass the test. But that speaks less about Justin Gill and more about our prospect pool, right? Maybe I'm throwing Justin under the bus more than he deserves. It's not his fault that our prospect pool isn't that great. Number 4, Liam Foudy, we just picked up. Former first round pick there. Had an okay year at the AHL level. Didn't play a full year, only played 28 games, but 16 points is not too bad. I think it was 0.57 points per game. That's okay. That's going to get you a 21-ish NHLE, which isn't outstanding. Then we have William Zuffel, which is a name that everyone is already familiar with. Kind of the same thing as Matthew Maggio. Overager, has been at the AHL for 2 years now, going into his 3rd year. But 5th round pick, they take a little bit longer, people. We've seen William Zuffel fix the one big weakness in his game, which was his skating. I understand you can say his positional ability and his play away from the puck really weren't great, which is why he was called up for a half second, and then they put him on the ice and said, "Oh no, he is not ready yet." Um, but you can learn that stuff. He learned how to skate better. He can learn how to be where he needs to be better, if you will. Um, but still, based off of his production last year, the model says he's the fifth best prospect in the prospect pool right now. And again, that model is looking specifically at production. So goals, points, or goals, assists, and points over a number of games relative to wherever they're playing. And Williams Zufolk is number 5. Now, what we want to do here is, okay, well, that's what the numbers say. What do your eye tests say, Miss? Because you've watched these guys, as some of you at home as well. What does the eye test say to you? What are the 5 best prospects in our prospect pool? Now, remember, my top 5 here isn't to say that this prospect is going to be the best prospect in the prospect pool. He's not. It's not that he's got the highest ceilings, that he's got a combination of a lot of things. And so that's how I've ranked my players here. First one is Alex Jeffries. There's a reason he's at the top of the list here. I've liked Alex Jeffries for a while. And I may be a little bit sheepish on his ceiling. I've had some friends who say that top 6 is a potential ceiling. I say more middle 6, maybe even like third line to like really narrow it down. I think he's more of a third liner, but he's got a ton of speed. He's super smart. Scott Borek has called him the smartest player at the NCAA level when he was a freshman. He stepped into the NCAA level and played on 5-on-5. He played the power play and played the penalty kill straight out of as a true freshman. And we saw how dominant he was for Merrimack, right? Like we saw his production earlier, 7 points in 12 games at the AHL level, but a point per game player last year, a point per game player 2 years ago. Had Hobey Baker votes as a freshman. He was never going to win it, but he was in the top 50 for the Hobey Baker. Like there was some consideration here from the second he went from prep school to the college level, and he did not disappoint. There's a lot to like there with Alex Jeffries, and that's why I've got him number 1. Number 2, Matthew Maggio. I can't discredit what he's done at the OHL level. I know people go like, well, overager. Okay, fine. Yes, he was an overager, but we just looked at Justin Gill, and overagers don't always dominate, right? And Justin Gill was fine, 98-point player. It's still really, really good, but it wasn't over 100 points. It wasn't meteoric. It wasn't scoring 5 goals in a game as Matthew Maggio did 2 years ago at the OHL level, right? Maggio, remember, 111 points in 66 games at the OHL level with 54 goals. He was close to a goal per game. And it's not like he had a ton of quality around him. He had great players around him, but it's not like he had a future first rounder, top 10 pick next to him. Yes, some of you at home might say like, didn't Shane Wright play for the Windsor Spitfires? Yes, at the end of the year, he did play for the Windsor Spitfires, but he and Matthew Maggio rarely played together outside of like the power play. And most of his production was already in the bag at that point. Shane Wright did not turn Matthew Maggio into what he was. Matthew Maggio was that despite Shane Wright. And so there's a lot to like in his game, which is why I've got him at number 2. I think his ceiling is very much like Alex Jeffries, third liner type of thing. But maybe just third liner with probably not any special team upsides, which is why I put him down below Alex Jeffries. I'm sure Matthew Maggio can play on the power play, and I'm sure he could play on the penalty kill. It's just I trust Alex Jeffries to be able to do that at the NHL level more than I trust Matthew Maggio. Number 3 is Calle Adelius. I friggin' love this kid's game. He didn't get enough of a look in Sweden, which is probably why Lou says, no, we're just going to sign you and you come over here. Don't worry about taking another year in Sweden as a 20-year-old. You're going to play your 20-year-old season here in North America and learn the North American game ASAP. I'm not going to waste around with like Robin Salo type of thing. Waste around and wait like I did with Robin Salo. I'm going to bring you in right away. And get you to learn this game ASAP. His skating is fantastic. His ability to headman the puck is fantastic. Even as a like third string defender in the Swedish leagues for Djurgårdens, I love everything about his game. I think it translates well to the NHL level. I don't think he's going to turn into like a Noah Dobson. No. second pair defenseman, yeah. Yeah, I think a second pair defenseman is very much in the cards for Kaliudelius. Number 4, Cole Eiserman. Some of you might have him higher up the list, and that's totally fine. I'm not going to argue at all if you have Cole Eiserman higher than any of these players. That is totally acceptable. His scoring is phenomenal. I don't need to show you any video. You've seen it, obviously. The second coming of Oliver Wahlstrom, or even the third coming of Kiefer Bellows, really. We've drafted guys like this before, which is kind of why I've got him a little bit lower here. Maybe it's because I've been hurt too many times. I've seen this type of player before. Again, Kiefer Bellows, Oliver Wahlstrom. We've seen these pure goal scorers step in and just not be able to do it at the NHL level. This guy seems different. I'll give him that. But I've got him number 4 because I'm worried that he's going to turn into a Kiefer Bellows or Oliver Wahlstrom. And that's just maybe me being too conservative with him or being too hurt. I'm just worried. I'm worried because I've seen this play out before. Number 5, Danny Nelson. I love his ability to play any position. Literally any position. Forward, center, winger. I know forward, center, and winger are basically the same thing, but like he can play anywhere. He can play on the top line, second line, third line. He can play down the middle. He can play to the wing. And he can play defense. Like, he can do it all. And I love that about a player. A versatility, you can't teach that. And his production at the NCAA level was pretty good for what was his first season in that league. Now that I bring it up here, like Danny Nelson had thrown 23 points with 9 goals in 30 games to the University of Notre Dame. Now, his production at the U20 level at the World Juniors wasn't great with 2 points in 7 games. And I didn't necessarily like his play in that tournament. But stepping from the USHL level for the National Development Program into the NCAA, I thought that Danny Nelson had a really good season. I really did. I think he showed his ability to be a physical player. He showed his ability in both special teams. He showed his ability at 5-on-5. His goal scoring rate isn't necessarily there. But I think that that's going to change going forward, where he gets a few more reps offensively and maybe is fed the puck a few more times compared to maybe some of his teammates that year who may have seen more of or gotten more of the shooting assignments, if you will. Right, like Landon Slaggert was a 20-goal player that year. That was their big shooter that season. Now, Slaggert was a third-round pick, I believe, by Chicago? Yes, a third-round pick in 2020 by Chicago. So like they were feeding this kid the puck more than they were Danny Nelson. There was no one else who had anywhere close to Slaggert's production. If I just bring it up here, Slaggert at 20 goals. If I triage for just goals there, it goes Slaggert, Monahan, Bavaro, and then Nelson. And even then, the 2 guys above him had 10 goals. So like they were barely ahead of Danny Nelson in the goal scoring department. So I think this season we're going to see a few more goals from Danny Nelson. And that production go up. And again, I love his ability. I think that this guy could be like Brock Nelson. I think at 18 years old, down the middle, you can have a Brock Nelson type player. Maybe I'm being too high on him in terms of his goal scoring abilities, but I think we will see that this year, where this guy is probably going to score somewhere around 15 to 20 goals at the NCAA level this season, assuming he plays a full year. And playing down the middle as I'm going to say top 6 center. Maybe I should just say second line. I don't think that he could be a first line center. I'm going to say second line here. And that, I think, totally fair. So that's my top 5 based on eye test. Now, you see the overlap with Jeffries and Maggio between the two, the analytics. But after that, wild difference. I don't have Dufault anywhere, and neither of these guys show up. Honorable mention to Isaiah George. I think that's more of a personal favorite more than anything else. I really like Isaiah George, and I had him number 6. I was going to put him in my top 5, but then I was like, I can't necessarily do that to like either Danny Nelson or Cole Eiserman, who have what should be a higher ceiling than Isaiah George. So let me know what your top 5 prospects are in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and we'll catch you later.